Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal, religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we like to say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Great to see all of you this morning. Glad you didn't let a little thing like a loss of an hour prevent you from being here. It's great to have all of you. I want to begin, as always, by embracing all that you bring with you, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that make you who you are is welcome here this morning. And this includes those who hear us say this each Sunday is a meaningful and important part of our service, as well as those who are hearing it for the first time this morning. You're equally as welcome and appreciated for all that you bring with you to this space. And it includes those who are streaming with us. So glad to know that you're with us as well. I get comments every Sunday from people who say they are with us, even if they can't be here in our space. So we definitely count you among us and are glad that you're here too. So welcome to one and all. Before you take a few moments to greet one another, I have one announcement I wanted to let you know about. Our Social Justice Coordinating Council is helping to host a Why Race Matters History, Systems, and Strategies workshop here at our church, happening April 21st. So you have some time, but I wanted to encourage you to put it on your calendar. It's going to be an all-day workshop from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m., and it will be addressing institutional racism in our country, what it is, how it happens, and what we can do about it. So to learn, there is a cost associated with this, so one of the reasons I wanted you to know about it, and there will be scholarships available as well. So for more information, there is a table in the back, and you can sign up, RSVP, or learn more about the workshop itself. So I would encourage you to stop by after our service and learn more about that. But get it on your calendar if you can. So with that, I do hope you'll take a few minutes this morning to say hi to those you look forward to seeing each Sunday. If you're joining us for the first time or more recently, please don't be shy. We're pretty friendly. Glad you're here. So make some new friends today. Sometimes I feel like I have to remind you that social hour actually starts after the service. But I am glad that you're enjoying each other's company and invite you, as always, to stick around after the service to visit with one another more. But for now, we do want to move forward with our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening words this morning are from Lisa Friedman. Spirit of life and love, we live in a fragmented world that tempts us to despair. We would put it back together piece by piece if it were ours to choose. But sometimes the fragments are enough. In a world of cruelty, there is still power in every act of kindness. In a time of doubt, there is still power in every act of hope. In an age of division, there is still power in every act of unity. May we remember that sometimes the fragments of meaning we make are just the right size to hold in our hands.
Please stand as you're willing and able to sing our first in-service hymn of the morning. It's Gather the Spirit, number 347. Gather the Spirit, harvest apart, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in streets, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love, with conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather
Got one of those. Working? No. I'll just speak up. Oh, you got it?
Let me tap it.
Yep. There it goes. Okay. That's better. A is for activist, advocate, abolitionist, ally, actively answering a call to action. Are you an activist? B is for banner bobbing in the sky, billowing in the breeze, because you're not shy. C is for co-op, cooperating cultures, creative counter to corporate vultures. Oh, and cats. Can you find the cats? D, little d, democracy. More than voting, you'll agree. Dictators detest it. Donkeys don't get it. But you and me, we demand equality. Equal rights, black, brown, or white. Clean and healthy is a right. Every place we live and play, environmental justice is the way. F is for feminist, for fairness in pay, for freedom to flourish and choose our own way. G is for grassroots, sprouting from below, sharing nutrients and the water's flow. Below the surface, we're all connected. Stronger together we grow. H is for healthy food, a human right. Honeydew, jicama, nature's delight. Hummus, hot dogs, Havarti cheese. Hot dogs? Yes, healthy hot dogs, please. And pizza. Indigenous and immigrant, together we stand tall. Our histories are relevant. An injury to one is an injury to all. J is for justice. Yay for justice. Juanita, Jamal, justice for the janitors, and justice for all. Kings are fine for story time. Knights are fun to play. But when we make decisions, we will choose the people's way. LGBTQ, love who you choose, because love is true. Liberate your notions of limited emotions. Celebrate with pride our links of devotion. Megaphones marching, movimiento music, hip hip hooray. It must be May Day. N is for no. No, no, no. Yes to what we want. No to what must go. No, no, no. Open minds operate best. Critical thinking over tests. Wisdom can't be memorized. Educate, agitate, organize. P is for Peace March. Peace March. Protest. Power to the people. And Q is for question. Questioning coercion. Querying qualities counter false assertions. Radical Reds, the headlines said. Ruinous rioters, the rumors spread. Rabble-rousing riffraff. Really? S is for sun, solar, superstar, stellar power. fuels all life, not just flowers, energized homes, cars, and showers. Silly, selfish scoundrels sucking on dinosaur sludge. That is funny. T is for trans, for trains, for tiaras, tulips, tractors, and tigers too. Trust in the true, the he, she, they, that is you. U is for weekends. U is for workers' rights. Wait, that's not U, that's W. U is for unions. Yes. V is for Vox. What is that? Did you say Fox? No, I said Vox. Did you say box? No, I said Vox. Rocks, blocks, socks, Vox. Vox of the people, voice of the populi. Better go see the letter D for democracy. Wondrous world, wondrous we. We cannot be whole, we cannot be free unless we delight in diversity. X is for Malcolm, as in Malcolm X. History's lessons can be complex. Remember Parks, remember King, remember Malcolm, and let freedom ring. Y is for you and youth and your planet, your rights, your future, your truth. And Y is for yes. And Z is for Zapatista, of course. And let us sing our children out. Thank you very much.
We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
Thank you, Michelina. We'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning, and want to begin with a candle for Adrian Teeter. For those who know Adrian, he attends usually this service. His father, Jim, passed away unexpectedly on Tuesday, and he asked that we kindle a candle and be thinking of him and his family. Do have a couple of congratulatory candles to celebrate today as well. Stephanie Kennedy, for those who know Stephanie, got married on Thursday to Elliot Sneed. So now Stephanie Kennedy is Stephanie Sneed. And I was happy to perform the ceremony. So when you see Stephanie, she was here at our first service, be sure and give her an extra hug. They've got a neat story. They met each other in the 5th grade and were 5th grade sweethearts and finally got around to it. So. And also, Candace Schmidt is over there. And Candace is a new grandmother as of Wednesday morning. Welcome to Josephine Rose Dane, who came in at 8 pounds, 6 ounces. Yes, and congratulations to you and your daughter and son-in-law and the whole family. Yep. Well, let's take a moment of silence now on behalf of others that we might be thinking of this morning, and as always, you'd be welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion.
As we enter into our time of meditation this morning, I invite you to find a comfortable posture and close your eyes if you'd like. The words to lead us into meditation this morning are from Angus McCormick. O living Spirit within us all, speak to us in silence. In the silence of the crowd, the silence of our inner echoes. Ever-present Spirit, convert our isolation into relationships, and our relationships into everlasting ties that bring peace and beauty. Remain in us unstilled until you make us stilled.
For our reading today, I'm going to invite you to turn to number 666 in the back of your gray hymnal, share in a responsive reading. I don't know if there's a lot of churches out there that have a number 666 in the back of their hymnal, but but this is a great reading. And why don't we start with this side today, this side of the room, and this side can be our respondents, and then we'll close reading the final verse together. Despair is my private pain.
Born from what I failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome. Be still my inner self. Let me rise to you. Let me reach down into your pain and soothe you. I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, the streets of the city, the worn tapestries of brokerage terms. Drug dealers, private estates, personal things in the bag of heart. Rage and pain in the faces that turn from me, afraid of their own worlds. This common world I love anew, as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity and anything in the world forces to remains. From within this world, my despair is transformed to hope.
And I begin anew the legacy of caring.
Good morning, everyone. I am hoping that you will rise and sing at the end of my song, an old slave song, now is known as kind of the anthem of the anti-war movement, and you'll recognize it, I'm sure. Here we go. I dreamed I saw the children all dressed in white, playing in the Southland in the pale moonlight. Their radiant smiles were fading, the air was turning cool. I awoke to learn they were murdered in school. They were born in the century, turned 21, when the lesson was fear, desperados with a gun, no ride or walk or friend will ever bring them home, no commencement in the catacomb. Tell me, Mr. President, how much did they pay for your allegiance to the NRA? I'm a great big fan. You said just the other day, and they love our country, you did say. Walk out with the children on March 24. Now's the time to surrender the weapons of war. Get in the streets, raise your voices loud. They're walking out for peace, don't they make us proud? They're walking out for peace, don't they make us proud? We're still here, don't forget us. The Parkland children say, 'cause we cannot forget the ones we lost that day. That puts it in perspective. They don't want any replay of what went down in school Valentine's Day, of what went on in school Valentine's Day. Now I'd like you to rise and sing, and rise as you're willing and able, and sing Down by the Riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Well, down by the riverside, I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, away down by the riverside. Yeah, I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna walk with the children. I'm gonna walk with the children down by the rivers, down by the down by the rivers. I'm gonna walk with the children down by the rivers, away down by the river side. Here we go. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more.
Thank you so much, Pam. I tell you, I don't know how you do it. You write these original pieces and perform them, and not only are you a musical talent, but you're such a prophet in our community. So thank you so much. I gave a version of this sermon a couple of weeks ago when I was in Utah speaking with the fellowship there. And usually when I speak the first time at a congregation, I like to talk about Unitarian Universalism as a form of mysticism. It's kind of a nice way to introduce folks to what our faith is about and gives a fresh perspective. And the person I was speaking with about planning this with said, that would be fine, but what we would really like to hear is how in the world do we manage to survive in these politically discouraging times, essentially. And I said, oh, you want a political sermon? I said, I've given a few of those in my life. I can do that. But it also, reminded me that This is something that some of these smaller fellowships in rural communities ask for a lot these days. We're all wondering the same thing. How in the world do we get by in these bizarre, strange times? And so I thought it would be nice to talk a little bit about it here today, because I know we're still feeling the daily pressures of what seems like a new reality to us. So that's where this sermon, Drumpffounded, was born. And it comes from something I heard shortly before the last presidential election, when HBO comedian John Oliver revealed that Donald Trump's family name had once been Drumpf. It's actually true. It's not a joke. It was Drumpf, and was changed somewhere along the line by an ancestor. It's the sound produced when a morbidly obese pigeon flies into the window of a foreclosed Old Navy. Drumpf. So Oliver had a lot of fun with this phonetically funny-sounding name, and given its kinship with a similar-sounding word, it seems a good one to help express how many of us are feeling these days. Drumpffounded. For it seems since Trump took office, we've been pummeled almost daily with unbelievable, frightening, disheartening, dumbfounding news. Like his appointment of a white supremacist to head the Justice Department. Banning transgender troops. Firing the FBI director investigating him. Withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris Climate Treaty. Dropping the biggest bomb since Hiroshima on Afghanistan. Threatening nuclear war with North Korea. Imposing travel bans on Muslims and other political refugees. Ending DACA. Taking health care away from millions. Giving billions in tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. Praising and inviting murderous dictators to the White House while betraying our nation's allies. And of course, an endless barrage of childish tweets. And the list goes on. If you're like me, you feel dumbfounded most of the time. So don't let my play on words mislead you into thinking that I'm not serious about how, as religious liberals, as Unitarian Universalists, we can take heart and move forward when faced with today's depressing and discouraging political realities. But I'm also happy to start with a little political satire, given that humor is one of the best ways to reduce anxiety and make our problems feel manageable. I know in this age of political correctness, many frown upon laughing at the expense of others and upon not taking serious things seriously. But the very root of the word human is the same as the word humor. It's also the root of the word humus, meaning earth. Humans are humorous. Just take a look at one of us. All the other animals out there are laughing. Look at how they wobble on two legs. Life on earth is humorous, and to be human, to be of the earth, requires a good sense of humor, because we couldn't survive all its hardships and sufferings without a good laugh now and then. So I'm being serious when I say humor is one of the valuable tools in our toolbox for coping with our dumbfoundedness. And this is why political satirists like John Oliver, Bill Maher, Trevor Noah, Samantha Bee, Stephen Colbert, and of course, the great Jon Stewart, God rest his soul, It's one of the reasons they're so successful, because through laughter, they help make some of our greatest concerns seem less overwhelming. In fact, the very word satire comes from the Greek word satyrs, which refer to mythological figures that were always publicly lewd and indecent. In other words, satire is the original dirty joke. And the satyrs were those who brought up topics considered inappropriate or politically incorrect in polite society. Statues of some of these lewd satyrs were used in Greek gardens as scarecrows, which is the entire point of humor, according to psychotherapist Thomas More. He says to scare away all kinds of winged spirits, our lofty thoughts, our airy ideas, our flighty opinions, our otherworldly aspirations. This is why inappropriate jokes often emerge in the wake of great tragedy, because they help us make our loads feel lighter by making light of the things weighing most heavily upon us. So keep watching The Daily Show, Real Time with Bill Maher, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, Last Week with John Oliver, or whichever political satirist tickles your funny bone. Or check out the political cartoons in the papers, or just take a break, go to the comedy club, or watch one of your favorite comedies on TV. In theatrical tradition, comedy and tragedy are always linked together because we can't go through one without experiencing the other. So find ways to laugh, to pressurize, lighten your load with a little humor in these Drumpffounding times. It's equally as important, probably more so, to remain alert and resolute. If the election of Donald Trump was a wake-up call, then some of us must have been asleep at the wheel. In 2008, for instance, immediately following the historic election of President Obama, the GOP devised a plan, Project Red Map, to elect key officials around the country in time for the 2010 census, which when the U.S. Constitution allows states to redistrict their voting precincts. Within just a couple of years, the GOP was able to quadruple its power to redistrict states, took over both houses, and effectively blocked Obama from accomplishing much of anything for the last 6 years of his presidency. Project Red Map, which stands for Redistricting Majority Project, happened openly, right under our noses, and nobody made a move to stop it. This in addition to voter suppression laws, mass voter purging, 600,000 in Georgia alone, and a criminal justice system that disproportionately disenfranchises non-white, likely Democratic voters, were all accomplished with little notice or pushback, skewing election results in favor of a minority of voters. Democracy was not stolen. It was given away. It was let go of. Maybe some felt, having successfully elected a Democrat to the presidency and our nation's first African-American president, that we could take a break. We now know, unfortunately, that white supremacy remains alive and well in our country. But why did it take a racist president who has appointed notorious white nationalists to his cabinet, or Nazis marching in our streets chanting, "Jews will not replace us," whom Trump has called some very fine people, for us to realize this? The reality is, little has changed in our country since the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, the Fair Housing Act of 1968. As I've quoted before, according to sociologist Eduardo Bonilla Silva, to this day, blacks and most racial minorities lag behind whites in terms of income, wealth, occupational and health status, educational attainment, and other relevant social indicators. Now, to better grasp the bottom line of what this means, according to an article appearing just last month in the state, the latest figures from the U.S. Census Bureau show the median net worth for an African American family is now $9,000 and $12,000 for a Latino family compared to $132,000 for a white family. The investigative report entitled "Kept Out: How Banks Block People of Color from Home Ownership" begins by acknowledging 50 years after the Federal Housing Act banned racial discrimination in lending, African Americans and Latinos continue to be routinely denied conventional mortgage loans at rates far higher than their white counterparts. Yet during more than a year in office, Trump's Justice Department hasn't filed suit against a single lending institution for violating the Community Reinvestment Act, which for more than 40 years has legally required them to solicit clients, borrowers, and depositors from all segments of their communities. So the real concern should be why many of us are only now, in the aftermath of Trump's election, waking up to the reality of white supremacy in our nation, when again, so little has changed since before the 1960s. In fact, despite these ongoing inequities, during his entire 8 years in office, Obama's Justice Department sued only 9 lending institutions for violating the Fair Housing Act. Here's another example. In November, the New York Times published an article entitled "The Coast Guard's Floating Guantanamos," about how the U.S. is using ships floating on international waters to detain prisoners for long periods of time without due process of law. After the report, Democracy Now! Noted that the extraterritorial confinement program was escalated under the watch of General John Kelly, whom Amy Goodman pointed out is Trump's White House chief of staff. What she didn't mention, however, is that Kelly did so between 2012 and 2016, during Obama's administration. We should also keep in mind that the U.S. Supreme Court didn't recognize the right of same-sex marriage until 2015, near the end of Obama's term in office, and that when Obama was running, he expressed opposition to marriage equality. Also, it was only after much pressure from environmental activists that he finally decided to reject the Keystone Pipeline, and he was mostly quiet about the Dakota Access Pipeline until, with just 48 days left in office, he gave a temporary hold on the project, effectively passing the buck for the next president. And we all know how that has worked out. This isn't about criticizing Obama. My point, rather, is those of us advocating for marriage equality and income equality and other issues like protecting the environment have had to struggle just as hard with a Democrat in office as we now do under Trump. So when I'm asked what we do now, or what can we do, I say we keep doing what we've been doing for decades, working hard to make our world a more just and peaceful place for everyone. Did you stop? I know you didn't. As Drumpffounded as we may feel, the issues before us today are the issues that were before us yesterday and last year and for many decades before that. So in addition to keeping a sense of humor, it may help to keep in mind that things haven't exactly been easy for us liberals for a long time. We must keep our eyes on the prize, ending income inequality, dismantling ancient systems of white supremacy, ridding the world of nuclear weapons, protecting the environment and reversing global warming, getting weapons of war off of our streets and out of the hands of people who want to kill our children, gender equality and protecting women from sexual harassment and abuse, and so many other issues that we have been dealing with for years. And this means, most importantly, in addition to keeping a sense of humor and remembering things have never exactly been easy for us, that we must do something. We can't be left so Drumpffounded that we are too depressed and despondent to keep up the good fight. We must remain engaged in the enduring work of justice making. And as Unitarian Universalists, we must do so together. The question then is, how do we best practice what we preach today? What can we do as Unitarian Universalists to make a difference now? As part of a religious organization, there are certain rules of engagement we do need to consider, even though being a nonprofit 501c3 doesn't mean, as many mistakenly think, that we're not supposed to engage in politics at all. When I gave that version of this sermon in St. George, Utah, a couple weeks ago, for instance, a fellow showed up who nobody knew, didn't speak to anyone, and had very hostile body language, never looked up, and took notes the entire time I spoke. I presume that he presumed that I couldn't talk about politics in church, and was there to catch me in the act so he could report me to the Gestapo. If he'd have just asked, I would have given him a copy of the entire transcript. In which I explained that to maintain tax-exempt status, churches and other 501c3s aren't allowed to officially endorse or campaign on behalf of specific political candidates. And that's pretty much the only limitation we have. A religious organization can hold candidate forums to educate the community on about positions that it holds dear, that certain politicians hold. We can engage in get out the vote drives and spend a non-substantial amount of our budget on lobbying efforts, up to $1 million if we had a budget that big. So long as all of that's done in a nonpartisan fashion. And there are some churches out there that can afford to spend $1 million, and do, on the issues that matter to them. We're also perfectly free to publicly advocate for the issues, including initiatives and referendums that we support, just as we did when we paid for marriage equality billboards in 2012, directly stating, "Vote yes for Referendum 74. I think that's being pretty political. So outside of telling people who they should vote for, don't let anyone tell you that as Unitarian Universalists we can't engage in politics. The question is, should we? Is it ethical for us to do so? According to the latest Pew Research, a growing number of people consider themselves spiritual but not religious. You've heard this term. And are turned off by organized religion because they say churches are too involved in politics. Most of these, however, as the same research shows, still identify as Christians, but simply don't go to church anywhere. So what most of them mean by spiritual but not religious is Christian but not church-going. And I can't blame them. While I certainly understand why so many are turned off by the commingling of religion and politics these days, I personally don't know how to be religious without being political. I'm not turned off by religion and politics. I'm turned off by religions engaged in the wrong politics. I'm talking about the politics of inequality, the politics of discrimination, the politics of exploitation. Using religion as an excuse to justify mistreating and oppressing others should trouble us all. But using religion as a political force to liberate the oppressed and make the world a more just and peaceful place is, for me, what religion is all about. Yes, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Amen. For what is the point of religion if it's not making justice, creating on heaven on earth, becoming the change that we wish to see? This is why the words politics, and liturgy share the same root. Politics, from which we take the polls, right? Politics refers to the will of the people, and liturgy refers to the work of the people. One must follow the other. It isn't enough to merely want transformation. We must work for it. Faith without works is dead. Faith without actions is pointless. And faith that is used to justify injustice isn't faith at all. Something else. Karen Armstrong, the world-renowned authority on religion, says that all the major religions on earth today all began in response to injustice. What mattered in the beginning, she says, was not what you believed, but how you behaved. This is why the Hebrew book of Amos says, I hate and reject your festivals. Your religious ceremonies stink. I cannot accept your burnt offerings and refuse to look at your animal sacrifices. I can't stand that noise you call singing and music. Instead of all that, let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. It's why Isaiah says the entire purpose of religion is to bring relief to the poor. To bring relief to the poor. To heal the downtrodden. To proclaim liberty to the oppressed. And to set the captives free. Likewise, as some Christian scholars now recognize, Jesus' parables are not merely earthly stories with heavenly meanings. Rather, as William Herzog says in his book, Parables as Subversive Speech, Jesus' ministry was concerned with political and economic issues. Matters of justice were not peripheral to a spiritual gospel, but were at the heart of his proclamation and practice. Or as theologian Walter Wink more succinctly says, almost every sentence Jesus uttered was an indictment of the domination system or a disclosure of an alternative to it. Indeed, some of the most admired social reformers in modern history have been religious leaders who engaged in politics. Gandhi was a devout Hindu and the spiritual leader of an ashram. Martin Luther King Jr., Baptist preacher. Susan B. Anthony, an abolitionist and leader in the women's suffrage movement, was inspired by her Quaker religion. Daniel and Philip Berrigan, who were on the FBI's most wanted list for burning Vietnam draft notices with napalm, were both Catholic priests, as was Archbishop Oscar Romero, who was assassinated in 1980 for speaking against government oppression in the death squads in San Salvador. The world-renowned peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh is a Buddhist priest, and the Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibet, is one of today's leading human rights activists. So as Unitarian Universalists, the answer is we can, and yes, we should be involved in politics. As a UU minister, I've been politically engaged for years. some of you know. And though the men in black have come around a couple of times, so far they've not threatened or questioned the 501c3 status of the churches I've pastored. Not that that is my primary concern. After the 2004 national election, as many of you know, Kentucky, where I was living at the time, was among the first of 11 states to pass constitutional amendments officially banning same-sex marriage. The following Sunday, I told my congregation there that I could no longer in good conscience perform weddings for anyone until I'm free to perform them equally for everyone, including gays and lesbians. Although the good people at the Clifton Unitarian Church in Louisville applauded and supported my decision, my secular employers weren't so happy. They reprimanded and demoted me and asked for my resignation a short time later. And I was fired after that, eventually fired. So, even so, I didn't perform a wedding ceremony for almost a decade, not until 2012 when it became legal for me to do so here in Washington State. Since January of 2017, furthermore, I've addressed what I consider the ill-gotten election of Donald Trump in nearly half my sermons. One more than half today. Thank you. In 2017, again, as many of you know, I was also the one who had the honor of filing an initiative in Spokane that, if passed, would have fined oil and coal companies for unsafely transporting fossil fuels through Spokane. Unfortunately, the railroad outspent our grassroots campaign by an estimated $500,000 to our $6,000. And we lost by 9 percentage points. Just a few weeks ago, however, Washington's Governor Jay Inslee rejected the last of 6 permit requests to construct a fossil fuel export facility on our coastline. And if you read that article, he based his decision partly out of concern for the safety of Spokane, reciting the very talking points expressed in our initiative word for word. So even though we lost locally, our work ended up being the cover that our governor needed to give us a statewide victory by saying no to the deadly and dying fossil fuel industry. I also often hold fundraisers for political candidates in our home. And I've engaged in all of these activities and more, not because I'm overly political, but because I am deeply religious. Because I am a Unitarian Universalist, and I do not know how to be religious without also being political. Liturgics without politics is dead. Like many of you, I'm guessing, I feel Drumpffounded most of the time these days. But I counter my confusion and despondency by keeping a sense of humor, remembering things have never been easy for us religious liberals, and by remaining active in the work of social and environmental justice. The long arc of the universe may bend towards justice, but I'm quite sure it won't get there without us. That even if some of us never make it there ourselves, no one will ever reach the promised land without our help. And the people said, Amen. Thank you.
Rise as you're willing and able to sing one more step, number 168. Peace.
Our benediction this morning is from Maya Angelou. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the dawn breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.